who's going to be willing to seek truth for truth's sake, to act as Christ, because Christ didn't follow a religion, to act as Buddha. Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. Christ wasn't a Christian. Who's going to be willing to seek God because they genuinely desire to find God? And what you'll find in this world is that it's the seekers that find. One thing you'll hear in secret societies all the time is that a lot of information is only for those who are seeking. You know, if you're seeking it, you'll definitely find it. But if you're not seeking it, you'll never find it. And I feel like that's so unfair because a lot of real truths that could deeply empower people in a positive way has been demonized. Been deeply demonized in our culture, has been made to look at something evil. And so the only people that would seek it are usually more demonic people. It's not I actually just want to do good in life and just help people. Certain wisdom is only allowed for the righteous. That's how God designed it. No man can change that law, right? So there's this intersection between righteousness and seeking that has to happen in order for you to find the ultimate truth. And it shows you why the path is so narrow. It shows you why very few people will ever really stumble upon what's really true.
What's good, Dharma Glow family? I'm here with King Kephera. He's a brother that I've seen online sharing a lot of high vibrational knowledge and perspective, and a mutual friend recently connected us and was like, y'all need to link. Y'all are both doing powerful things in the community. We had a conversation offline about a week ago, and we were like, yeah, let's definitely get on a podcast and share. So here we are, and thanks for being here, brother.
Oh no, thank you for having me. This is an amazing opportunity to be able to share and express with your community. And I'm sure there's a lot of like-minded individuals there that could really resonate with everything I have to share.
Yes, I see that you've done some pretty deep esoteric learnings, and some things I touch into on Dharma Glow because I like to be the bridge from mainstream dogmatic ways of thinking to taking in really like the multicultural, multidimensional spiritual perspectives that are now available to us in the Aquarian age. So before you get into starting to share some of the things you've learned, I love to hear the origin stories of people and like how they got to where they are. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes and 33 seconds to say, I was born here, and then take me to what brought you up to where you are.
I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, really
ATL.
Regular kind of living. I was born in basically like a cabin, if you could call it. Like, it wasn't a cabin, it was like 3-story house, but we had trees on every corner of our house. So I spent the majority of my childhood literally just traveling around the woods. And so like the concept of being like connected to nature, I just thought that was the norm. And spirituality has been one of those things that has been with me since the beginning. My family is my grandma was a minister, so came from like a religious background, Christian religious background. But I used to like spontaneously astral project and to see other dimensions and things of that nature, far back as I can remember. And there was a lot of things that I was always just constantly asking questions about, my actual personal experiences. That led to me finding a community in Atlanta at a very young age. When I was about 16 years old, I found a community of mystics and started participating in a lot of shamanistic work. My sister became a shaman, started giving out ayahuasca. So, we just started moving throughout the community in a very different way, very unique way that allowed me to connect with a lot of the spiritual, quote unquote, leaders that started to be able to have actual answers I was looking for. And as I became like a container for all the wisdom of my elders, I ended up being given a platform where I had a class that I was teaching and doing that every Friday, bringing people in, having conversations, a lot of open discussion. My biggest personal journey has been yoga spiritually. I'm a Kriya yogi. That comes from just around that time of service. Just had a really profound experience directly with the divine. Constantly just tried to figure out what that experience was. And that led me to studying. I could go through all the different cultures that I've studied, but I've never been one to just sit on the surface. I'm an Aquarius. I have a deep desire to know things, and like I know things about pretty much everything. Like we could sit here and have just as in depth of a conversation about like finances or something, and that's just me. I just really enjoy knowing things and helping people.
And what were some of the challenges you experienced on your way to acquiring all this knowledge? Because I would imagine it was a unique thing to be interested in so many esoteric things at such depth relative to people that are just interested in like basketball or pop culture or whatever.
Culturally, I make music. So culturally, I've always been good at that. So I always had the ability to connect with my peers. I'm really tall, but I'm horrible at basketball. So I tried doing that. Wasn't my way of connecting, but music was always like a gift of mine. I was very popular throughout all of my high schooling and past high school into just roaming around the city. So like I'm very known by people, but a lot of that came from me just constantly networking to spread my music, just being very social and just having that core element that's pretty much universal. Everybody's into music. And then the challenges though were like when you're looking for answers, and actually don't mind me, I'm gonna just shut this door. I did not realize I had it open. But when looking for answers and you're looking for the people that really have some of the best answers, what you'll find is a lot of information is secret and is held only by members of secret societies. And so my probably biggest challenge was interacting with a lot of secret society members at a very young age, being in a very vulnerable state, oftentimes fearing my life just because of what I knew, and just not having the full picture. Also feeling conflicts within my mind between what I was learning and then my Christian background, just certain layers that just came from me desiring to know. Unfortunately, that's the crux of being human, is being constantly curious. And sometimes you can find yourself around people who they symbolize the end to your curiosity. They symbolize like the satisfaction of, oh, I finally figured out the mystery, but they also may be dangerous characters to associate yourself with, maybe dangerous to your reputation, but potentially also dangerous to your well-being. So yeah, I had a lot of mental breakdowns at a very young age. Not a lot of mental breakdowns. It was just like one serious mental breakdown at a very young age. But that was actually ended up being my biggest like dark night of the soul kind of thing, where it really was what catapulted me into being a suitable teacher that can actually guide people and recognize light from dark, recognize oneness, and recognize how to hold space for all of it. But just being able to properly guide people to where they really need to be without all the illusions, without all the power tactics that can breed dangerous environments, without all that. And that's what I'm really passionate about, is helping people find their way without them having to go through some of the hardships that I went through to get the knowledge that I
definitely resonate with what you're saying. And I feel like everyone I've talked to that is a healer, a shaman, a guide, a leader of some sort had their own dark night of the soul where they were really initiated. And I feel like it engenders a lot of humility to have that experience, and helps you realize the responsibility you have. And also it creates relatability for people when they're suffering, because you actually have a very visceral lived experience of what it can feel like when you're lost or disconnected from your true essence or your God light within. And I'm curious how you feel like it prepared you to be a more responsible and integrous leader, that dark night of the soul.
It's funny, I'll mention two things on there, but that particular moment, like I said, it was just interacting with the wrong individuals. What it really showed me was how dark can get. And that was very interesting, because when you're a star, you're surrounded by darkness, and you might be looking around at the darkness and you think, oh, everything is dark, I must be the dark. But it's when you really see how dark can get, then that's when you realize that you're the light. You know what I'm saying? That's what shows you who and what you are. And let's see. Good brother, you still there?
So it said that your internet dropped, but It's been going in and out, but let's see. I can hear you and see you now.
Okay. Yeah, it's coming through clear in this moment, but I don't see you though.
Okay. The way this works, by the way, on this Riverside app is I think everything is recorded remotely. And then once the call is over, like once the conversation is over and I stop recording, it then uploads everything to the cloud. So it should be okay. It should be recording on your phone, but we'll have to see. We'll see when it's done. But just so you know, once I stop recording, don't hang up. We're going to have to stay on the call for 2 or 3 minutes to let it finish its upload.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so jumping back in, you said that you saw such extreme darkness that's what helped you to realize that you were.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was like I said, I had a bit of a mental breakdown. And, as things started to fall apart, it's really a beautiful thing, honestly, when you start to question not only what you were previously programmed with, like the things that you grew up with, but also now what you're learning, the esoteric information, you start questioning all of it. Then it's like you become a blank slate. I don't know what to believe. And it was like I really opened myself up. And I feel like that was the first stage of wisdom. Wise man knows that he knows nothing. It really helped me to realize how little I knew. And I carried that with me for years, brother, where just I looked into everything, connecting with different cultures. And I was never, because I had that community background, it was never just pick up a book thing. Like I always tried to find a guru or some type of sage, somebody, an elder, or just somebody proficient in their wisdom. So I've connected with a lot of beautiful, bright minds, read a lot of books as well, but also connected with a lot of communities. And if a practice, only practice that maybe didn't have as much of a sufficient community that I really dived deep in is really just like ancient Kemetic culture, which they do have the Asara Set Society. And I did connect with them, but I probably did more of my research into ancient Kemet on my own. I wouldn't even say that. And I've had mentors with that element too. So yeah, just in every single aspect, constantly my realization was that I'm the student. And that's what that really taught me was I'm the student and I'm not just trying to learn just for the sake of learning, but rather I'm seeking to learn how to be a better human being. And for me, that looked like being a more loving, harmonious human being, something that's beneficial to life itself, to the planet, and to all the living beings that I share this space with. That's what I'll say about that. But then also just real quick, add on about Dark Nights of the Soul, if that's what we want to call it. Actually, just recently, my wife was pregnant with my second child. And that was what actually led to a lot of awakening for me. I've been on a constant state of awakening, but that really put me on a very different particular path where you use the word humility. It was just money. It was just real regular life stuff, like just not having, just living out. We were living out in California, LA for about 4 years. And at the time, most of our income was coming through modeling. And at the time, it wasn't working out at that moment. And we were trying to communicate to our landlord. My wife was pregnant and the landlord was just in Hayward and she was like harassing us. She was harassing my wife specifically and while she was pregnant, granted. And we ended up getting evicted. Simultaneously got our car repossessed. Didn't even know though that we were even paying for the car because the car was something that my wife had since she was like in college. And so it was like a gift from her mom, but her mom she had moved to Mexico and was basically no longer making money, just built a house out there and just was living. And so she stopped paying on it. But I guess pride, she didn't have the guts to just tell us what happened. So we're sitting here thinking that somebody stole our car, ended up being repossessed. So we don't have a place to go, car to drive. And I have a pregnant wife and a daughter, you know what I'm saying? And it was just like, that was like hardest moment. It really taught me a lot because, man, for one, community showed up in a way that I just didn't expect. Community showed up and just looked out for us. We were good. We were not only good, we were thriving like the whole time, like literally taken care of in the most luxurious way that you could think of. And at no point did we have money to pay for anything. But like at no point, but it was just like, that really also showed me the reflection of the vibe that you put out comes back, like the karma that you create coming back to you. And it also showed me great humility because I was just used to always having things figured out, always knowing the answer, and just feeling like I was failing as a leader, as a man, as a provider, as a husband, all those things. That really, it led me on a darker path for just mentally for a second, where I was questioning my faith and all these things. Like, yeah, God, you always give me miracles. There's never a time where I haven't experienced a miracle, and now this is what you're giving me. But I found this amazing book called Stairway to Enlightenment, or it's like Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, Stairway to Enlightenment by Dr. David Hawkins. And basically, there's a book by Ryan Holiday called Ego is the Enemy. And I've never read that Ryan Holiday book, but that title, though, is basically the gist of what Transcending the Levels of Consciousness, Stairway to Enlightenment. That's ultimately what it was saying, was that you feel all these weird ways. Nothing is actually wrong. You're being taken care of. That's the issue, is that your ego feels injured by what you're experiencing. And so that really taught me to transcend the ego. I won't say kill the ego or anything, but transcend it and recognize it as the tool that it is. And now I utilize my ego. I still use it, but I use it very consciously, and I'm never used by it, because that time period really just made me aware of like how. And then we also ended up living on a farm for a good period during that time period. Just because I was like, it was a communal farm. That was one of the only places that would really accept us. And also, like, I'm like wearing like the same shirt every day, just going outside, like feeding animals and watering plants and stuff like that, hanging out with the community members. And so it became a thing of like, why did I care in the first place? What people thought about me and all this stuff. And yeah, so that was a really big transition area. That was just last year, man. That was just last year. And it was just a moment, but we all go through ebbs and flows, and most of us like to hide our ebbs. But that was actually one of the most enlightening time periods. I won't use the word. I'm currently in the most enlightening time period of my life, but that was still, it was a big catalyst. It was an important catalyst for where I'm at right now.
I hear you. I'm glad that now is the most enlightening time of your life. It's always the present moment, but that's a very powerful story. And when I went in the dark nights of the soul, I wasn't a provider, a husband, a father. So I can only imagine how deep the pressure you felt in that situation was, and the shame you felt about not being able to show up in the way that you wanted to. But I also think that God also strips away things a lot of times so that we can be purified of whatever distortion or illusions we're living in. And he creates situations where it's like only the essentials are there, and the essentials show up and you have them, and you don't need anything. You have everything you need, and you get to like ground into that space and then rebuild from there. And it sounds like that's what you have the opportunity to do. And yeah, just honor your testimony to be able to share that. I know that's not easy, especially as a man. It's like a lot of times I feel like masculinity is about putting on a front and being the man, the guy, and all this stuff. And
no,
I was talking.
Like you said, it's more relatable. There's more people going through stuff that need to be reminded that you can go through something and come out, and it's just a moment. Reminding people that those are just moments, and that greatness is anywhere, always available to you to recreate. That's, I find, more important than just being like, oh, I always have it figured. That's not realistic. That's not life.
It's not realistic.
It gives people false hope. Yeah, it gives people a false sense of what they should be doing and where their life should be.
Exactly. And I think it's also important for us to remember, especially as leaders and masculine leaders, that we're not in control. No one is in control, but we can be in charge. And I think that there is a natural dichotomy of leadership that happens between the masculine and the feminine. And I feel like the masculine is more the outer. As cliche as things are, it's like the masculine gets the home, the feminine makes it a house, the energetics of those things. And the masculine walks on the outside of the street, closest to the curb, because we have a stronger physical vessel. And it's just a matter of respect. And I think the distortion that's happened over the last patriarchal cycle was the differences that exist between the masculine and feminine, male and female, has been seen as something less than. And it's not less than, it's just complementary. And I'm sure you know that as a husband. But I feel like it's good to come back into that remembrance. And I was actually having a conversation with someone after the Kamala Harris Donald Trump debate. And the end point of the conversation basically was like, I don't think it should be about voting for a man or a woman. It should be about voting for a divine union and having two people be leaders so that when you have a debate, you're literally watching two couples or three couples talk about what their perspective is on leadership, because inherently within that dynamic of being in a couple, you have to understand some things like compromise and sacrifice. And if you can't create harmony within your own relational dynamic, how could you create harmony for the relational field of society? Like, it feels like a necessary skill set to have. So just like there are requirements, like you have to be 35 to run for president, it's like you have to be in a healthy relationship also, a divine union with the technology over here.
Oh man, it's on me. That's on me, man.
All right, we can close it down because I know one, your battery is low, but also we're having some technical difficulties. But so as a husband and a father of two, what are some of the greatest lessons you've learned being in that position of leadership?
Man, that's a big one. The biggest lesson there has been understanding your unconscious mind. A lot of people talk about like the subconscious, and sometimes it can get confusing, the differentiation between a subconscious and it can be difficult to understand the difference between the subconscious and the conscious. But like the unconscious, I'm not trying to like make it confusing, but there's things in us that are typically our biggest motivating factors, the things that really drive the way that we are, the way that we behave, the way that we perceive ourselves. And they're often driven by things that we completely don't see whatsoever. And a lot of it oftentimes hits on like very like scary areas of your life, things that are very scary to reflect and look at on. And I've just been on this journey, or I feel like I've achieved a destination. I just don't want to be seeming like something beyond human when I talk. But I really gained this ability to take all things unconscious and bring them into my awareness. And what really started me on my journey of being able to look within and find those things that are apparently hidden, yet simultaneously driving the majority of what I'm doing. A lot of it was just parenthood, man. It was like the things that was triggering me to reflect on my own childhood and just being wise enough then to take the little tidbits where it's like, why am I aggressive in these moments? I'm reflecting my dad, but let me take that and follow that trail so I can understand that at the greatest depths. Like, why am I being impatient? What are these ideas that I have around what parenthood is supposed to be? What is the desire that I'm having that's getting in the way, that's making me feel like I'm deprived of something, that's causing me to show up in this way, frustrated? It just got me into really like pairing parenthood with meditation has really helped me to see the actual driving points of our thoughts. And that might sound like something that nobody was looking for as far as the answer, because I could just simply say, hey, it's helped me deal with my aggression and patience. It's helped me become like infinitely patient, which obviously you can apply that simple one tidbit to every aspect of your life. But the biggest thing is recognizing that it wasn't just about aggression. It wasn't just about patience. It's recognizing, why wasn't I those things in the beginning? What was it that was driving my thoughts, driving my mind? And I find that typically it's our identities, our desires, and our attachments, and being able to follow those things through, feel your emotions around the things that come up, and realize you can continue to be controlled by these thoughts, these ideas, these beliefs, or you can set a new intention. Free yourself.
That's powerful. Are there any specific examples of times when you felt your patience being tested and then you had to pause? What does that look like in real time?
Yeah, nowadays, like I said, my patience is pretty strong. But I remember when I was really working on it, and I was like daily really focused on expanding my patience. And there was a moment, I don't even remember exactly what my daughter was doing. I was only a parent of one at this time, but there was something that she was doing regarding like crying and acting out. And when I'm trying to correct her, she's like throwing things at me and stuff like that. And there was a moment where I just remembered I felt the rage build up within me. And it was like punishment, like discipline. She needs to understand that this is not the right behavior.
Right.
And then it was just like, you need to undo it. Like it was like the clearest reflection, like, you need to understand that what you're feeling right now is not the right behavior. And I just took a deep
Right.
breath and it was just like, all right. And what was interesting, that moment taught me something else. It taught me how impressionable your children are, how they follow your energy. So as my energy was getting more ramped up, so was hers. But when
Right.
I started to calm myself down, she naturally started to calm down. So I didn't have to do anything to try to correct her behavior. By correcting my own, she naturally corrected herself because I gave her the example of how. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for that example. And that definitely resonates on a number of levels. Just yesterday, I saw something on Instagram about intentional parenting was mirroring just what you said. So when your child starts acting out and being disrespectful, don't start talking over them. Don't start telling them what they're doing is not okay. Just wait for them to finish. And then in a very calm voice, say what your boundary is and say, if you talk in that tone, then I'm going to leave the room. But I would appreciate it if you could say that again in a different way. And you're like showing them calmness and embodying that vibration and also allowing them the opportunity to entrain to your own frequency.
Yeah.
And we all get those lessons in different ways. I was just talking on my stories just today. I went up to the dentist and it was a new dentist. So I filled out all these forms and I was annoyed to fill out all these forms. There was forms to fill out online that are like 20 pages long. And it was like, what's this? And what's your preferred name? And do you have all these questions. So I was a little bit annoyed about that. And then when I walked through the door, and the woman was taking me back to the room, she didn't call me my preferred name.
Oh.
I was like, oh, I go by Dijon. And then she just shook her head and turned around and walked away. And I was like, and then when I got into the room, she was like, there's no way I'm supposed to know that. It says this on your chart here. Like, how would I supposed to know? And I was like, I filled out some paperwork with that. And I'm telling you now. So you could just say, okay, and call me what I asked.
Right.
And then she just didn't respond and she walked down the room. And I was like, what's her problem? Right. So then she leads me to get my x-rays. And I was like, just curious, I've had x-rays done recently. I'm not sure if we need to do these, but if they're covered by insurance, then yeah, we can go ahead and do them. Do you know if they're covered by insurance? And she goes, sir, I need you to step out of the hallway and into the room. And I was like, excuse me? I was like, I'm just asking you a question. And she was like, you can figure that out when you leave. And I was just like, what is this woman's problem? Like, I need to get her name. Like, I'm going to tell them how rude she is. I'm going to write a Yelp review. Like, I'm going to do all these things. And then I just observed myself and I was like, well, why are you're just spinning out? Like, only the ego gets offended.
Yeah.
If you step back and have some patience, and you have no idea what's going on in this woman's reality and why she may be acting this way. And you can offer her grace, which is a blessing to her, but it's also a blessing to you because now you're not getting agitated and having this like energy run through your system in this way. And it's just a choice. It's just a choice to say, it's fine. Like, I'll just let that go and start being grateful for something that is going awesome in my life, which is all these other things.
Here's the funny thing about that, though. There's two sides to that. Because I agree with what you just said. It shouldn't affect you. And it shouldn't change how you act. Because, like, I try to tell my daughter all the time, like, she'd be like, I want to do that to him because that was, he was being mean to me. And oftentimes, this is like in the context of a game that they're playing, and she's supposed to be a good guy. So I'll be like, okay, so you're the superhero, right? I was like, don't superheroes do good things?
Right.
And yeah. I was like, well, would that be a good thing? Like, you have to, And so I use that framework of those moments where she's in a character so she can see, don't step out of your character just because
Exactly.
somebody else did.
Right.
That's one. And I definitely agree with that. But two is I'm really big on practicing royalty, really big on it. And not in on a monarchy way where there's just one ruler. I practice what the Bible talks about, where it says in Genesis chapter 1 that God gave us dominion, meaning that he made us the supreme authority over all things. And I'm just really big on this thought that there are standards of how you should treat me. You know what I'm saying? And I really don't, it's not that I'm offended. It's not that it's changed me. It's not that it's going to change how I treat you, but you just don't deserve my presence if you're not treating me right, to be real, because you don't know, like the same way that you had the mind to say, let's give her grace. I don't know what she's going through. She doesn't know what you're going through. Why does she get the grace when you don't? You know what I mean? Like, you're a human being. We're all human beings. And you deserve to be treated well. And I think it actually communicates something negative to our psyche when we think I'm supposed to treat everybody else well. And I don't have to set any standard for how they treat me. I really believe that there should be a standard for how you treat.
Of course. But it's also, what are we talking about? So this was a woman that I had a 3-minute interaction with at my dentist office. Yeah. So I don't have to interact with her again, probably ever. I don't have to necessarily patronize that dentist office again if I don't want to. So it's not something I need to dig into for the principle of it. If this was somebody I was like co-creating an event with or had a business relationship with or a personal relationship with, then yes, I definitely uphold, standards and communicate my truth or when something doesn't feel good. And then sometimes it's just a practice of like observation and seeing what program's running underneath and what I can let go of. And I do that same test, that litmus test. When you said a superhero, for me, it's Christ. Is this Christ? And I feel like someone who is egoless, not in the sense they don't have an identity, but that they're not driven by the negative ego, is unoffendable, right? Like when Jesus was being held before he got crucified and Pilate was asking him to explain himself, and he didn't say anything because he was like, you couldn't understand what I would want to say anyways. I'm at peace with what's happening. I'm not going to waste my breath trying to convince you of something that you can't understand anyways. And nor did he try to defend himself and say, because they brought him out and Pilate said, there's Barabbas here, this murderer. And then Jesus, do you want me to let Barabbas go or do you want me to let Jesus go? And he wasn't like, I'm a good guy. Like, I love people. I'm trying to help. This guy murdered people. He just was like resigned to the unfolding. And I think that you have an intuitive knowing. We all have an intuitive knowing of when it's time to stand up and communicate a boundary or a truth. And also when it's time to just surrender to the unfolding of things. Because one thing I communicate a lot about my perspective on Christ is that it's not just Jesus. Like Jesus Christ isn't the Christ. He was a Christed being. And we all have that seed that we can nurture and develop a Christ. And there have been other Christed beings that I think perhaps were not as adamant about bringing their truth to the masses and therefore did not face the kind of persecution that he faced. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of secret societies that have cultivated certain knowledge but kept it hidden because they understood that modern humanity, mainstream humanity, was not ready for it and would react violently to being exposed to it. So I think there's more of that than there is people that actually try to voice these deeper truths. And when you do voice these deeper truths, I think that a lot of times persecution and misunderstanding and projection is a huge part of what you're going to receive back for doing that.
Yeah. I have this metaphor that I found to be really helpful for explaining purposes, at least. You might get it immediately, but like for your audience, it might be very eye-opening. But you ever seen the movie Aladdin?
Yeah.
So you remember in the beginning how they had the Cave of Wonders and Jafar was out there looking for the diamond in the rough, and only the diamond in the rough could enter into the Cave of Wonders. Mm-hmm. Instead of the Cave of Wonders being represented like real jewels and stuff like that, what if it just represented truth? And the diamond in the rough just represents the seekers, the very few amidst all the different built up, organized paths that one could take. Who's going to be willing to seek truth for truth's sake, to act as Christ, because Christ didn't follow a religion. You know what I'm saying? To act as Buddha. Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. Christ wasn't a Christian. So it's like, who's going to be willing to seek God because they genuinely desire to find God? And what you'll find in this world is that it's the seekers that find one. You know, the one thing you'll hear in secret societies all the time is that a lot of information is only for those who are seeking. You know, if you're seeking it, you'll definitely find it. But if you're not seeking it, you'll never find it. And I feel like that's so unfair because a lot of real truths that could deeply empower people in a positive way has been demonized, been deeply demonized in our culture, has been made to be look at something evil. And so the only people that would seek it are usually more demonic people. It's the Jafars in life that are looking for the Cave of Wonders. It's not like, it's not the, I actually just want to do good in life and just help people. It's not those people who are looking for the Cave of Wonders. They're just going about their life. It's Jafar. And then the funny thing though is that the diamond in the rough, that represents the righteous people. So not only do you have to seek in order to find, but you can't enter into the cave to get what finally came to you. That moment when it comes, you're not allowed. Certain wisdom is only allowed for the righteous. That's how God designed it. No man can change that law, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this intersection between righteousness and seeking that has to happen in order for you to find the ultimate truth. And it shows you why the path is so narrow. It shows you why very few people will ever really stumble upon what's really true, right? And what you find is exactly what happened in that movie is exactly what happens in real life, where it's the Jafars that will just find the Aladdin and take advantage of the Aladdins to get access to what it is that they're looking for. And if you happen to be following this, I want you to really do an inventory of the people in your life and just ask yourself, is there a Jafar in my life that's trying to use me to get access to wisdom that they probably don't have access to? Real.
Man, I haven't thought about Aladdin in years, and now we're throwing so much shade at Jafar.
Oh, yeah. No shade. This is using character development.
I know. I feel you. I feel you. And I do understand what you're saying, and it makes sense. And I also, in response to what you're saying, because those dynamics definitely exist, and people definitely pursue things for quote unquote the wrong reasons, for ego gratification and power and control and manipulation and all that type of stuff. And the way I would respond to that is I would say they're just ignorant. That's just ignorance. Because the only thing, we're all children of God, right? Everything that's created is a child of God. Even Lucifer, people think of Lucifer, Satan, and Lucifer is a fallen angel. Lucifer is actually a being that's obsessed with the light. And then there's Baal, which is obsessed with the darkness and the demonic stuff. But either one of those beings are in extremities, and they're actually confused and ignorant about what's going to bring everlasting fulfillment and peace, because it's not gratification of personal desires or egoic desires, and they might be on that pathway. So when you say very few people will find the truth and the path is narrow, I do understand what you mean. But my perspective is that everyone will find the truth. And it's just a matter of when they choose to do it. Because how I view all of creation is there was the all at the beginning, right? And then there was the Big Bang, or the cosmic Om, or whatever you want to call it. And it was like an inhale from the divine, right? And everything exploded in a million directions. And things travel as far away from the center point as possible. And that's when people are on their exploratory journeys of what consciousness is and what kind of choices I can make and what are the effects of these causes that I've set into motion. And they experience all of it, including you, including me. You experience like every role in the dynamic. And you can accelerate your path back to wholeness as an individuated soul when you start consciously choosing to realign. And wherever anyone else is on their path to reunification really has nothing to do with me. That's their journey. And a lot of times, them being the antagonist in my story provides me with the opportunity to embody the grace that I've intellectualized, but maybe haven't embodied as deeply as I want to. And that's why I say, like with the story of Jesus, he got crucified because he wanted to. He got crucified because that was his final test in a human incarnation to transcend fear, the illusory realm, and be like, yes, I'm having this experience, but I'm also divinely connected. And I'm showing that I believe in these principles that I know to be true more so than I believe in that reality. And I'm exemplifying to everybody else the power of that belief in love over the power of being a temporal king, like an alpha, like I'm dominating people, I'm fighting for things, and more being surrendered to divine will and trusting in the flow and knowing that you are an eternal being and acting from that place. And I think that's actually the most gangster thing there is. It's just being like, I know the truth. These silly games you're doing, that's fine. You can do that. Like you can't actually hurt me. And having that echo throughout all time and inspire people. So yeah, man, I appreciate that we can meet at this level of awareness to have these types of conversations. And I know that we could talk for hours and hours, and I'm sure we will. We just met and we're going to connect more. And a big part of my journey I desire to have is to be a leader, a father, a husband. So I'm excited to chop it up with you more about that. And I believe you're going to be coming to the Glow Up this year.
Yeah, I'll be there for sure.
Yes, sir.
But I'm going to be driving, but my family, they're flying. We just bought tickets today to Atlanta, so we'll be there.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah, man.
Well, maybe we'll do part 2 in person when you're here and figure out other ways for you to connect with the community. So is there anything that you want to share as far as your offerings or how you work with people or anything like that?
Right now, I'm really just looking towards just giving to people. What I'll say is follow me on YouTube. Very soon, I'll be releasing, probably within the next month. Like I said, I'm traveling, but within the next month, I'm about to start releasing a video every week. But my goal is really just to give at this moment so I can begin to just get better at communicating my message and to find those people who are really interested in what I have to say and see what they actually are looking for. Although I do have curriculums already made, my offerings at this moment are more so creative. I model, I songwrite. That's what I do primarily for a living. I'm not trying to get anything from anybody, just trying to give. And I just wanted to make commentary on what you had said there. Just a brief quote from Lao Tzu, which is, what is a good man but a bad man's teacher? What is a bad man but a good man's job?
Ashe. That's a bar right there. Put that in a song.
Absolutely. But yeah, bro, this has been amazing, and I would love to do it in person. I feel it'll flow better when the technology is not the constraint, and yeah, it'll flow better for certain. Because I'm, as I can imagine, you are. I'm an energy. You'll feel it when we're in the same presence, and I'm sure I'll feel you, and it's just gonna explode into something. And I hope to help you make the most popular video on your show if I could. That would be amazing.
Ashe, brother, ashe, and so it is. Thank you so much for dropping in and connecting and sharing your path and your journey. And I'm excited to keep building, brother.
Same to you, brother. Stay blessed. Peace and love.
Peace and love. One love.